it's an interesting phenomenon because that's kind of one of the red pill things that get people into this. They see these images and they're like, dude, why are they all doing the little one eye like thing? And why are they all doing 666 hands and things like this? And it's irrefutable and it's perplexing and nobody really understands it.
Sometimes I think that symbols themselves, they convey ideas much more effectively than language.
Holy crap, everything I learned about this whole thing was a lie. And call me a conspiracy theorist, but I was all in on it. Dude, these guys knew what was going on.
Life and just everything around me makes a lot more sense.
I'm watching videos about satanic child groups right now, and it's like really dark, but I'm really intrigued by it. I'm not interested in it. I'm just intrigued. I'm conflicted on what to believe with the non-human intelligences. I believe they exist for sure. I used to do ghost hunting back in '99, and that's one of the things that opened my eyes up to like the other side. And a lot of weird stuff happened to me after that, and I was like, okay, I'm not messing with that no more. I'm working on this massive, 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes on the Dark Enlightenment, and it honestly, all the pieces of everything I've ever researched falls into it.
I'm watching it and I'm like, there's nothing I can do now. There's nothing anyone could do. We're moving forward with this narrative.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight and be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, head in the clouds, and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days.
Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. Before we introduce today's guest, I would just like to remind all of our live viewers that this is not a 30-minute preview, and we will not be going live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad at the 30-minute mark. However, it is still an excellent way to support the show and get a little bit of bang for your buck. You can enjoy ad-free viewing experiences, gain access to the episodes before the general public, as well as discount codes off of merchandise from toplobster.com. All that and more awaits you over at patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Guys, joining us today is a guest that we've wanted to talk to for a long time. We finally got it done. Introducing Isaac Weishaupt. Isaac, for the audience who might not be familiar with your content, let everybody know where they can find your work and what is it that you focus on.
All right. Thanks for having me on. There's been a lot of requests for me to hook up with you guys, so I'm glad we finally can make this happen. So I'll give you guys the 30-second history. I started blogging in
No.
where you can
Sorry.
you can still find my I don't have my blog articles. I got sued and had to take them down, and I've just been censored to oblivion. But anyway, so IlluminatiWatcher.com is where you can find links to everything, my podcast, my books, all that stuff. And around 2014, I started the podcast, which at the time was called Conspiracy Theories in Pop Culture and Unpopular Culture, excuse me. And that bled into a YouTube channel, which was getting really big numbers. And then that got torched. I kept writing over the years. I've written 9 books. I'm working on my 10th one right now, which is about Twin Peaks occult symbolism. And then around 2021, I rebranded my podcast into Occult Symbolism in Pop Culture for a variety of reasons. We can get into that if you want. But the ideas that I've been presenting and researching since basically full-time since 2011 have been a mix of occult spirituality and religious beliefs mixed with pop culture, films, movies, television, mixed with conspiracy theory, updates, news, culture. And, over the years, I've refined the sort of ideas. And as you guys know, when you get into this when I started out, it was very much just being on the pulse of, oh, what are the conspiracy people talking about? And then as the years go by, you start sort of niching out into the thing that you're really into. And now I find myself being more of a basement dweller type researcher now, and I kind of mind my own business and just research and, you know, do my podcast is kind of where the path has led me. So yeah, you can find me on all the podcast platforms, Occult Symbolism and Pop Culture.
That's a great field of study, occult symbolism in pop culture. It's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. In very many ways, it brought me to the table because you know, you just get all this symbolism in the music industry and in Hollywood and things like that, and you get these, you know, answers from people that are sort of naysayers that they sound like, well, this is just shock value, that an artist or an industry is implanting these symbols within their product in order to, I don't know, reach a niche audience who really doesn't have any money anyway. Conspiracy theorists, we're typically broke and unhinged. We're not really your main consumer base, and yet we were made to believe that a lot of this is just shock value. It's just to capture the attention of people who, you know, are alone in being able to see it. And then if you don't believe that and you decide to start digging into what these symbols mean, it's a never-ending treasure trove of revelations.
Yeah. What do you make of that? Because I mean, you've been doing this since 2011. So you've been studying like this weird esoteric occult symbolism that pops up pretty much everywhere, whether it's music, history, entertainment. Why are they showing it to us so readily? And especially lately, why is it so blatantly obvious?
Hmm.
Yeah, these are like the $1,000,000 questions. And this is how my sort of study of occult symbolism is what put me into the conspiracy world as a sort of truther or theorist or whatever you want to call it. Um, because most people that do know me know that I, on the spectrum of sort of conspiracy theorists, I am well further down the rational side of, and I don't say that in a demeaning way, but I mean it in more of a, I'm a little more skeptical than most. Like I'm not like, you know, that video I saw that security guy turn into a lizard. That's proof. Like I'm not that guy. Like I'd be like, okay, maybe that was an artifact in the video. I don't know. It could be. And I give credence to all conspiracies. Like I'm openly entertain all of them. Like I'm not like, I don't just shut things down. But as far as symbolism goes, it's an interesting phenomenon because that's kind of one of the red pill things that get people into this, because they see these images and they're like, dude, why are they all doing the little one eye like thing? And why are they all doing 666 hands and things like this? And it's irrefutable and it's perplexing and nobody really understands it. And from the people that have come before me, like James Shelby Downard is a guy that I just got turned on to a few years back, and I'm still unpacking a lot of his writings. He talks about the cryptocracy, which is, you know, to simplify it, it's kind of more of like the Illuminati, right? And these people practice a form of sort of esoteric magic in a way that they are playing with energies is kind of the short version. And a lot of the people like Carl Jung, psychoanalyst Carl Jung, who was an occultist himself, a Gnostic, he talked about, he's got a whole book on symbolism, and a couple of them actually, and he talks about how symbols give purpose to mankind. And then if you read into various of like, I'm trying to think of the name of the book. It's a comparative religion book. The name escapes me now. Everyone knows it, but anyways, if you look at the ancient cultures and their religions and stuff, they all thought that the symbols held power, and that's why they would use them in these ceremonies and such. And it goes into some of the sort of black magic groups and the satanic folks. Like there's this group called the Order of Nine Angles that's, I mean, fascinating and terrifying at the same time. And in their book, it's called the Infernal Magic Book, they talk about the magicians using the signs and the symbols to communicate. And that's the big thing here. And that's where you start to make sense of why symbols are everywhere and what they're doing. And you go back through the lineage of occult magicians, Eliphas Levi, the guy who drew the first Baphomet, you know, goat with the bobs. He talked about the magnetic chain and how symbols would charge up a magnetic chain. And if you and I'm throwing a million ideas at you guys, but a lot on my journey before I started getting into full-time conspiracies back in like the early 2000s. I was really only into Bill Cooper's Behold a Pale Horse, and David Icke's had a bunch of VHS tapes like Freedom Road, and those things opened me up to studying New Age philosophies, The Secret, Law of Attraction, what the Believe Do We Know series, and all those things sort of tie into the same phenomenon. It's the same phenomenon of you're dealing with a sort of energy, and what we determine with our five senses isn't all there is to this world. So they do believe in these ancient occult belief systems of hermeticism, as above, so below. It goes back to John Dee making contact with the Enochian aliens, and you find this same sort of idea and concept throughout all of human history, throughout all of the occult. And it's basically symbols are used on a subconscious level to charge up energies or to open up and facilitate communication with non-human entities.
So there's a couple of things there. Like, so you just ran down the list of like, this is just candy right now, and I'm trying to figure out which one I want to eat. The order of nine angles is something that put us onto this number, the number 9, which seems to be significant. You have Tesla with his 369. Merkel had a documentary.
What's the Tesla 369? I'm not familiar with that.
Yin Yang twins, damn so fine. Zig zag zag.
Yeah. From the window to the wall, that kind of shit. No, 369, 3 being 3 is the number of like the underworld, right? 6 is the number of man, 9 would be the number of the firmament, or the I think he was talking about the stars, which we would deduce mean like the angelic bodies or the Elohim. And he said, if you want to understand things, you think in 369, also in terms of vibration, frequency, and energy, I believe.
Oh, sorry. You're talking about Nikola Tesla. I was picturing Elon Musk when you said Tesla. I was
no,
like,
he's become synonymous with it now.
Yeah. Anyways, and that doesn't change anything. I had to train of thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nikola Tesla was talking about those kinds of things, huh?
Yeah.
Well, specifically like the number 9 is something that comes up in order of 9 angles. And it put us onto this guy, Andrija Puharich, which you also mentioned, like electromagnetic energy, which this dude, Andrija Puharich, is focused on these elf waves, which are electromagnetic frequencies that kind of like develop a harp, the harp machine, or like mind control, all kinds of shit like this. But what do you know about the number 9? Is this something that maybe you can gleam on us that we're missing? Because there's a lot of shit that's floating around that we're continually pulling out and creating. We're creating like this magnum opus of this weird study, and it revolves around the number 9.
So for the order of 9 angles, like they use it to refer to sacred geometry. And you got 3 times 3 equals 9, so it's like the square, right? And this ties into the Church of Satan's. Anton LaVey also had a thing called the Order of the Trapezoid, and all of this sacred geometry talk goes back to Pythagoras. So again, my point I want to kind of keep bringing the audience to is that this isn't just some new conspiracy talk. This is ancient wisdom, and a lot of the sort of thought leaders of modern man. And the 9 angles, the order of 9 angles, they have a symbol, and it's hard to describe what it is. It's
almost like a sigil.
Yeah, it's more of a sigil than a symbol, really, right? And from what I had read in their book, it's they believe it to be some kind of sacred geometry, and I don't know, it has something to do with that. It has something to do with illuminating the right angles between the points on the shape. And
it's like all these things, they kind of are not, I don't want to use reduce in a negative connotation, but like much of this geometry reduces itself to the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio or pi, right? But it's like that's a lot of what this. You mentioned Pythagoras before, and I was just talking the other day about how on my other show, Timeline Cleanse, we watched this short that was made by Disney back in the day where Donald Duck enters a secret society, a Pythagorean secret society.
Yeah, I've seen.
Yeah, that's a really cool bit of, I don't know what you would call it. It's propaganda. Anything that comes out of Disney is propaganda. But and they explain this concept of the golden ratio, how it relates to the rectangle, how it relates to the pentagram. And so yeah, sacred geometry. We're talking about symbols. A sacred geometry goes hand in hand with that. Sometimes I speculate that a lot of these rituals that we see, right? What does it include? Well, it includes a harmonic, a resonance, a frequency aspect in the shape of hymns or mantras that you're repeating over and over again. So you have this resonance aspect, and then you have the geometry aspect. It's usually like a pentagram or some sigil or something enclosed within a circle. You have a conductor in the form of bloodletting, right? So blood, any liquid is an effective conductor. What is it conducting? It's conducting energy. What kind of energy? Well, it's a negative energy, because usually these things are charged by the sacrifice of something that is an unwilling participant. So sometimes I think that symbols themselves, they convey ideas much more effectively than language. One symbol can convey so much meaning. But then on top of it, there are other ways to, this realm is like run by ideas, resonance, frequencies, energies. Symbols are an effective way to implant ideas. And in order to manipulate this realm, if it really is made up of these things that I just talked about, it's energy and geometry and things. Well, then you need to do a ritual where you incorporate those things. And maybe that is the ways by which they kind of, it's a means to an end. If you want to alter this realm, you need to do it with geometry, you need to do it with energy, you need to do it with frequency, and you need a conductor of some sort. And so I think that really what we're seeing when we're seeing all this ritual and all these symbols and such, a lot of it is just like, yeah, it's the nature of the realm that we inhabit, and it's how they manipulate it. And it's not like something that manifests right away. It manifests over time, but they need to do that.
Yeah, and a lot of that is sort of to incarnate something from the like, if you go back to the creation of the world and God, it's about the logos or the thought and the spoken word sort of manifesting into reality. And yeah, there's a I think there's something magical to it. And there's a kind of obscure thing. I was trying to find it on there while you were chatting about that. I did a 5-part series on the 9/11 back in 2021. And one element out of that is that, and there's in Kabbalah, you've got the Kabbalistic tree of life, right? And you got the 10 emanations, the 10 Sephirot, which is like the sort of mind of God creating the material world. And the Kabbalists, your Madonnas and your Britney Spearses and Ariana Grande, they all and Ashton Kutcher, they all practice this in the sense that they believe they can take different attributes of the Kabbalistic tree of life and sort of master each one and move up towards the highest, which is Keter, the crown, which is where God resides, and that's the highest Sephirot. And this came up with, and that's why I wanted to look it up, because I wanted to attribute it to the right person. I want to say it was Freeman Fly who was talking about the number, because he predicted 9/11, and in a way, and the idea was that the magician practicing Kabbalah, I think he attributed it to Aleister Crowley, was going up the tree of life, and they skipped from the 9th Sephiroth to the 11th, which is above and beyond God, meaning that they became the magician, and now they are sort of better than God, and they can create their own realities, which is one of the ideas behind the ritualistic events of 9/11, because it was a very strange event, obviously. And you have all this alchemical symbolism there of taking the two twin pillars, the twin towers that you see in front of Solomon's temple as Boaz and Yakin. And those were the twin towers, and they took them down and they replaced it with a single tower, right? And this is again more Kabbalistic symbolism, and it's because you've got the pillar of mercy and the pillar of severity on the two sides of the tree of life, but to go up the center is the pillar of perfection, and it takes you through what they call Deoth, which is like the hidden Sephiroth that a lot of these like magicians get into, right? And I don't practice any of this stuff; I just read about it. But so I don't understand it in the sense that I've experienced any of this stuff. But they seem to believe it wholeheartedly and practice it, and they embrace this sort of line of thinking. And one more thing to add to the 9 argument is, when I was, did you guys ever watch Twin Peaks?
I tried because of you, and I'm
Oh, really?
so I cannot pay attention to shit. What's the guy's name? David, the guy that made it, David something with
David
an L.
Lynch, yeah.
He just passed away, and so I said, okay, you know what? Now that he's dead, I'll go I'll go watch it. And I
Yeah.
tried, and like I don't know what it was. It was just so my attention span, admittedly, is trash. And so I know I've heard you say that it took multiple attempts to watch it. The same thing happened with me with Breaking Bad, and then I ended up loving that show. So I'm hoping to revisit it and see if I just need to be in the right state of mind.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely not like the most digestible thing on the first attempt. My wife also has a hard time focusing on things, and she tapped out, maybe around the 12th episode.
She got
And
way
there's
further than me, dude.
yeah.
Episode 1, I was like, "What are they saying?" Like, I just couldn't. I got a
Yeah.
9-year-old too, so he's constantly like, trying to he's battling
Yeah.
for my attention. So Twin Peaks versus my son. My son ends up winning. But yeah, I got to give it another shot.
Yeah, it's not something you can just like watch in 10-minute chunks on your phone while you're getting ready to bed. Like it's not one of those.
Exactly.
And it's just so demanding because there's so much crap to get through. But anyway, my point being is that in season 3, this isn't a plot spoiler, but there's this recurring theme of the numbers 253, which add up to 10. And they even tell you in the show that 10 is the number of perfection, which would imply that 9 is like as close as you can get to it, which again, this is like sort of a Kabbalistic idea, is that the 9th Sephirah is about as close as you can get to the Kether, the crown, and the highest. So it's kind of the thing of being sort of right next to God, I would say. I mean, just to throw some ideas about what a 9 could represent. And then I'm trying to go back, you know how this goes, you research this stuff and then it just goes out your brain a week
Oh
later.
yeah.
But back when Juice World died, he was pushing a lot of the 999 symbolism, if you recall.
Yeah, I remember him.
I had a whole piece about that, and I don't remember what it was for the life of me now. It was kind
Well,
of the inversion of 666, right?
one of the things that we discovered with Andrea Puharich is that he's talking to this council of 9, and he goes
Mm.
as far as naming the individual entities that he's engaging with, and they all are the exact same names as the Egyptian Ennead, which is a
Right.
cluster of Egyptian gods that ruled over. And that sort of theme, it pops up over and over again, and it actually connects directly to what we dragged you out here to talk about today, was a little bit of this MKUltra and maybe even the Joe Rogan podcast and how that applies. But the reason that I'm drawing this connection here is because Andrea just talking to them, and they have a message. The message is more or less mankind is going to ascend at some point spiritually, and that is a good thing as long as we can avoid some sort of global catastrophe. And that global catastrophe takes two forms. Now, when it comes to the Egyptian Ennead, which is, I'm just going to call that the 9 because he literally named them, and each one of their names is the actual name of the individual entities from the Ennead. So they are telling him that it's a climate related catastrophe. What I find significant about that is that theme pops up over and over again, but it's not just relegated to Andreage and the Ennead. You have, for example, the Galactic Federation of Light, right? So many people who claim to be alien abductee victims will come back with this story. And certainly the Galactic Federation of Light that operates on YouTube to some degree, and you could decide for yourself whether or not there's any validity to it, but still, they have a pretty consistent message. And it's the same one that these people will often get from, ETs and their abduction experiences. And that message is mankind is being subdued by a group that is small and does not have their best interests at heart, and they're ruling things. And if we can get them out of the way and avoid a coming global catastrophe. Now with the ETs, it's a little bit different. It's like sometimes there's a climate alarmist angle, but other times it's, and this is pretty consistent too, you are going to destroy yourselves in nuclear war, and we have to stop you from destroying the planet. In fact, they showed up shortly after our nuclear testing. At least in the conventional sense, ETs as we see them today showed up after our nuclear tests. And so they want to save us from destroying the planet. They want to save us from this cabal that seeks to suppress us. And they want us to elevate and take our place among the Galactic Federation. And so this thing peeks its head up over and over and over again. There's a lady on TikTok. She has been using a Ouija board along with her husband, communicating with an entity for some time. They've surmised that this entity is like an ET. There's been several attempts, according to it, to intervene on behalf of humanity. And it points to, nuclear testing. That's when they show it basically alludes that it is the ETs that we keep having these experiences with, where they shut down our nuclear facilities when we're about to launch a missile or some shit like that. And yeah, basically its concern is you guys are going to destroy yourselves with the weapons that you developed. And that's not the purpose. You're meant to elevate and ascend and be part of us. And interestingly enough, that character tells its name, and its name is Seven. And you can go and find a book. There is a book called The Council of Nine or The Council of Saturn, and it's written by an entity named Seven. And it's all about how it's trying to intervene on our behalf because we're going to destroy ourselves and our planet, and we need to ascend. Over and over and over again, you find this theme.
Yeah, for sure, right? Yeah. Well, okay. Now this is where it kind of gets a little maybe subjective here as to who you're talking to. My personal worldview is I was raised in a like a Christian, non-denominational Christian church. It was, I don't know, I call it like a rock band church, right? And
Hillsong.
it wasn't that high production. It was the Church of the Nazarene, which ironically was the one that Charles Manson went to when he was a kid. I'm a big Manson like aficionado. I'm really into Charles Manson stuff. I got it from my dad. That's what one of
What
the
do you
weird...
think about the documentary? As a quick side.
So the book, I read the book when it came out. It's a pretty massive book because it was like 20 years of research Tom O'Neill did. And the book, and I had read several, I'm not going to say all the Manson books, but I've read, I mean, damn near all of them. I've seen damn near all the documentaries. And just as like a casual thing, I was going to write a book about Manson, but then in my research, Adam Gorightly had written a book called The Shadow over Santa Susanna, which was like far and above and beyond what I was thinking about writing, because he connects all these weird conspiracies and symbolism and connects it with pop culture events. I mean, it's an amazing book. And I read it for part of the research. And I was like, forget it. This guy already did it. So that, and I was starting to have these weird nightmares. Let me back up. So my dad, he died in 2012. He was 56 years old. And his whole life, and he was in law enforcement. He was a prison guard. And his whole life, he was super fascinated with Charles Manson. And he was pen pals with Michael Channels, the guy who was one of the like 3 people that contested with the state that he should have sort of inherited Charles Manson's body when he died or something like that, or been the part of the will or whatever. Anyway, my dad, like, he just was always fascinated by the case. And the when he died, my inheritance was his collection of Manson murderabilia, which was like, so I've got this framed thing in my basement of Charles Manson's hair and a guitar pick and a bunch of his drawings and this little record that he wrote Rise on. I mean, just like it goes on and on and on. There's letters. I mean, I got tons of crap. But it gives me weird bad mojo and I don't like it really, but I don't know what to do with it. I tried to give it on a lease to the Hollywood of Death Museum in LA. And they were like, look, like the deal is like, we don't lease stuff. You got to like give it to us or sell it to us. So how much do you want for it? And I was like, well, I don't want to, like, this is all I got. Like, this is all I got with my dad. Like, I'm not going to give it away, but I don't really want it in my house. So we didn't come to a conclusion. So there it sits in my basement. But when I brought it back in to my house, I'm from PA originally, I shipped it from PA, and I was starting to write this book, and I started to have these nightmares of like really gory visions, and around this time I read the Adam Gorightly book, and I was just like, dude, I'm tapping out. I'm done with this stuff. So it had this weird mojo to it, and that's I think the Charles Manson story, it plugs into so many conspiracies, and it was fascinating to read Chaos because Tom O'Neill basically exposes all of these conspiracies for what was really going on. And I believe Tom O'Neill, he stops short of saying like, this is it, this is what happened, Charles Manson was MKUltra, but he presents it in a way that I'm like, dude, that's exactly what happened. What are we talking about? And he punches big holes in Vincent Bugliosi's helter skelter theory that like when I read the book, I walked away from it saying, holy crap, everything I learned about this whole thing was a lie. And, you know, call me a conspiracy theorist, but I was all in on it. So when I saw the, you know, Tom O'Neill went on Joe Rogan a few years back, I listened to that. And even with that, I was like, I mean, they only have 2-3 hours to talk. And I was like, God, that didn't even scratch the surface. Like, I wanted more. And then I saw they were doing a Netflix, and that finally comes out, and it was only 90 minutes or whatever. And I was like, oh man.
How
Like,
did
it just,
Netflix do? Was it
it,
like damage control, or was it real?
no, it was, from what I remember, I read the book maybe, I don't even know, 6 years ago now, 7. And it, I don't, it didn't pull out all of the nuances of the people he caught in lies, like Bugliosi and I think Terry Melcher even. I don't remember the details, but there was a lot of stuff that just was like, dude, these guys knew what was going on. But they did pull out the good parts of the MKUltra Project Chaos stuff. They did pretty good on that from what I recall. But even with that, I watched it and I thought, man, I gotta reread this damn book, you know, because when I read it, I took a couple notes, but then I switched over to the Audible because I was like doing stuff.
Yeah,
And so now it's like I got to sit down and read this big ass book again because I know that there's more to it, that that's not being sort of relayed to the public is fascinating. But anyway, I got on the Charles Manson thing. What
Well, we
Oh
were
yeah,
talking about
your
the
church.
9.
Oh yeah,
No,
yeah.
no,
So
no.
the church, yeah, the
Yeah.
church, yeah. Charles Manson's church. No, I didn't go to the same one. He was from West Virginia. I was from PA. And anyway, so I in my first book I wrote in 2012, I presented this as, because I was going to grad school at the time, which I was in a very much a sort of academic state of mind. I was really into philosophy at the time, so I presented the book and the theories as a sort of academia for idiots like me. And I was kind of like, look, here's the deal. I've got these biases. I am a Christian. I got baptized Orthodox Christian, Greek Orthodox Christian in 2003. And I like Orthodoxy the most, just to add, I'm an Ortho bro, because it has a more mystical leaning, which I think is more on the nose than a lot of these sort of like rock band churches, right? And I'm not condemning that. I think everyone likes their religion in a certain flavor. And but
No,
in the book,
I'd agree. I'd agree. You can
yeah,
say exactly what you think here, man. Because this podcast is very it's not like against the church, but I grew up in the church, so I can uniquely speak to the fact that how I've learned almost zero of like spirituality from the church, or like this like weird esoteric knowledge that is within the Bible, and now that I'm rereading it and looking at it through this biblical lens, life and just everything around me makes a lot more sense. And shout out to Tony Merkel being one of the people that like kind of like kicked that door wide open for me. But obviously, Christian orthodoxy, like people like Jay Dyer and yourself and Buck Johnson and other guys like that, kind of have shown me like this different angle of what this religion is or what it was meant to be, I think.
yeah, totally. And I as I talked about in the first book, I've always had this healthy skepticism, I'd like to say, of religion itself and Christianity for that matter. I would I've got lots of friends that are atheists or agnostic that are better human beings than a lot of the Christians I know. So like I don't think, oh yeah, I'm Christian and I'm right, I'm the good guy and you're all the bad guys. Like a lot of people get into that, especially in the truther community. It's like it's this weird mix of these like hardcore Christians that like want the whole world to be Christian nationalists, and I'm like, bro, like that ain't right either. So
Right.
I can hold discussions on either side of that angle, but my personal beliefs is in Orthodox Christianity. Maybe that's like a, what they call it, Pascal's wager kind of thing. I don't know, but I think I choose that path because I've also, as you guys probably know, I'm like super interested in really dark stuff, really nihilistic entertainment my whole life. Stanley Kubrick, and I'm watching videos about satanic child groups right now, and it's like really dark, you know. But I'm really intrigued by it. I'm not interested in it. I'm just intrigued, like with the dark side of humanity for sure. Hence my Danzig shirt, right? We were talking about. But we were talking about Christianity.
We were
That was
talking
my
about the
worldview.
9.
The 9. Oh yeah. Okay. So if you go to I'm conflicted on what to believe with the non-human intelligences. I believe they exist for sure. I used to do
Right.
ghost hunting back in '99, and that's one of the things that opened my eyes up to like the other side. And a lot of weird stuff happened to me after that, and I was like, okay, I'm not messing with that no more. And then when you look at Father Seraphim Rose's book Orthodoxy and the Religion of the Future that he wrote in like the 60s, he nailed exactly everything that's going on today. He was like one of these OGs. It was like pop culture entertainment, Star Trek, like this is gonna lead us all into hell, you know. And he was talking about how it's gonna open us up to new age schools of thought and facilitate sort of this belief in aliens, and now it's the global religion, and that's how they basically distill, because he was really against like ecumenicism and this idea that a lot of churches will be open to the idea of welcoming other religions and saying, well, yeah, we all, and you'll hear this a lot. A lot of people are like, well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And I believe there's a higher power, and every religion has a different perspective, and it's all the same truth. And in the sort of old school Orthodox, like they're like, hell no, like you guys are all lying heretics and you're burning in hell, you know? And and it's kind of weird because that's kind of how Seraphim Rose views it. And he says, look, we start opening up this perspective of saying like, oh yeah, the Catholics are a little right, the Protestants are a little right, they're a little right, the Muslims are a little right. Like we open that up, and what it does is it dilutes the true faith of Orthodoxy into oblivion, so that Satan gets what he wants in the end, regardless of how this looks. He doesn't really care how it happens, just wants to get rid of Christianity, which one of the elements that sort of bolsters my Christian faith is when you read into the occult and Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons and Helena Blavatsky and all these people, every single one of them, their main beef is with Christianity. It ain't necessarily all religions. I mean, they don't like any religion, but the one that they really gets them in their gall is that one. And that ties me into this like alien discussion, because I do believe in my experience with ghost hunting. I do believe in entities and such. I think that you could have benevolent or malevolent beings, right? I think it's like angels and demons. In the Orthodox Church, we will pray to saints for various things. And I was talking, who was I talking to? I was talking to someone the other day about this, and they were like, yeah, that's kind of like the pagan pantheon of gods. Like you would pray to, Apollo for healing or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, kind of, maybe. But the idea is that there's communication to be had with entities in some other dimension, some other realm. And I do think that it could be positive or negative. We're taught like we don't have the discernment to know. So in the Orthodox or Christian perspective, I guess would be just don't talk to them, because you don't know what you're talking to. And I get that. But I also, like, I talked to Ryan Bledsoe, and his father got healed by aliens, Chris Bledsoe. Well, how do you explain that? I don't know. Like, doesn't seem demonic to me, but
Well, the Bible does say that you can specifically test the spirits, because I think that generally, yeah, on the other side of this weird spiritual realm, this like underside of the tapestry that we live on, there's a lot of weird shit going on and things that we don't understand and can't explain. So like we on this show, we have a little bit of a gripe with Joe Rogan, where he's like, yeah, just go in the float tank, do the DMT. It's like it's totally cool. It's like you're sending people into a realm that they don't really know how to traverse through, with zero experience and zero spiritual knowledge of it. So like you got to be really careful with that. But there's certainly things on that other side that are not completely evil. There are angels. There are like, I think the Bible does say that we have like there are angels that are around us, that are with us. But there's also fallen angels. Then there's also Nephilim. There's also, Gibberim. There's also Raphaim. There's a whole bunch of shit going on there. So if we don't know what's going on, I wouldn't suggest peeking into that realm, at least if you're not like ready for that sort of battle.
Let me ask you this, Isaac, and I want your genuine opinion, and it's totally fine to tell me if I'm reaching. I do it quite often, but when it comes to this spiritual realm and how we're kind of revisiting it, right? Like Top saying, like you have these John C. Lilly dolphin jerking off sensory deprivation tanks that Rogan is promoting, and certainly the DMT and ayahuasca phenomenon I call it a phenomenon because after Rogan's podcast, it exploded. Now there's a never-ending chain of white people going to the Amazon forest to go drink vines. And he's popularized a lot of things that have spiritual principles at their core, but he is almost in a way presenting them in a utilitarian aspect and not necessarily a spiritual one, right? And so sometimes I think that what's happened here is we've had our understanding of the spiritual realm removed to such a degree that we don't even perceive it, right? Especially in the West, it's like it's considered pseudoscience to even engage with the ideas. And many people can successfully go their entire lives. You might have little experiences that you can't explain, but society is set up in such a way that it's very easy to leave those to the side and continue working your 9 to 5 grind. So there's a lot of people that have zero awareness of it whatsoever. I almost feel like that's been on purpose. And the reason it was on purpose is because they had to rebrand and sell us something totally new as to an explanation as to what ETs or aliens are and what these entities are and what the spiritual realm is. So you remove our awareness of it entirely and then you repackage it, you give it to us in the new age movement, which is very much kind of the old age movement, right? It's almost unfair to call it the new age. These principles and ideas and concepts are age old. And then what you do is you use a lot of captured institutions like a NASA, maybe, right? That's created by a Warner von Braun. He's a scientist from Operation Paperclip. And you look at the way that NASA plays in with guys like L. Ron Hubbard, Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, right? Who's working at Jet Propulsion Laboratories. That's fascinating on its own. But then you look at another captured institution like Hollywood. And Hollywood is engineering, for the most part, all of our concepts or ideas about what these ETs are. And we're given this thing that's like, in some ways, they're going to potentially show up and destroy us, you know, kind of like the day the earth stood still or something. But in other ways, they're here to intervene on our behalf for our benefit. And then goes back to that narrative that we were talking about, the spiritual ascension and the protecting our planet from whatever's coming, or maybe even escaping this calamity. And it almost looks to me, Isaac, that we've gotten to a place where we're at the climax of a really long psychological operation to rebrand what aliens are and to rebrand the spiritual realm. But just like any other realm, like you know, Top was alluding to, we don't know what's in there. So if you go in the ocean, you know that there's things that are cool. Sea turtles are dope. You know, make sure that they don't have straws in their noses. Make sure that they're not getting strangled by 6-pack plastics. And there's all kinds of other, but stay away from sharks. They're very dangerous. Same thing with the woods, you know, cool animals, but don't go near the bear with their cubs. Well, we don't have that with the spiritual realm. And my problem with that is that whatever resides there is potentially ancient and incredibly deceitful. So you're talking about like a dude that was healed by and I don't know what to make of that, but I just know that it seems the MO is oftentimes like give us truths, give us good things, but embed within it a fundamental lie. So like the idea that these things can't present as one thing, Lucifer presents as an angel of light, and then actually be something totally different seems pretty reasonable to me. But am I just lumping a bunch of disjointed things that don't belong together?
I think you put it together pretty well there. It's one of those conundrums of trying to figure that out. And the to sort of respond, the first idea you were talking about was kind of Joe Rogan selling float tanks and DMT experiences and things.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice that I'm studying accelerationalism right now, and it leans heavily into this current state of the world affairs at the moment, because Silicon Valley is pushing for this, and I'm trying to understand what they want and what they're doing. And it has to do with their belief, and they're like atheists, obviously, right? And they think that capitalism is best left unchecked, and we might as well just accelerate it instead of trying to slow down and worrying about sea turtles with straws in their noses. They're like, no, just this beast is out of the box. Let's just do this thing. And what that leads to is the singularity, because that's what they want to bring about. You know, this is the argue again. This goes back to the whole digital matrix thing and how the nerds want to put us in the matrix, because that's where they can prove to their AI gods that they were on their team the whole time and they wanted to fuel it along.
Hmm.
But anyways, before we go into that, the idea is, to me, like our brains. I read Joe Dispenza's book. What was it? Some new age psychobabble bullshit, but but it works. It's like quantum thinking, right? And it's how to change your mind.
What a great sentence. Some new age psychobabble bullshit, but it works.
But it
But
works. It does work.
Yeah.
It totally works, because I've struggled with anxiety and depression my whole life, and a lot of those new age concepts really help. And the book, in the book that one I read, he was talking about this idea, like your brain is a filter, right? And you program it, and you program it to look for certain truths and things, and there's some percentage of your day of experiences and senses that come in that your brain just strips out, and it's just looking for like the thing that you want to look for. So if you're an atheist who doesn't believe in God and you're convinced that aliens exist, well, if you have a float tank experience or a hallucinogenic trip or psychedelics, you'll probably see something that supports that worldview, right? And that's kind of, I don't know what to think about Joe Rogan. I'm sure we'll talk about him some more. Like I said on my other podcast, I have a very toxic relationship with Joe Rogan that he has no idea about.
Me too, bro.
So do we,
I really
dude.
love him. I love Joe.
I
But,
know,
like,
same. I mentioned him in my first book as like I mentioned like 10 people that I was like, these are the thought leaders that I adhere to and listen to, and I think everyone should pay attention to these guys, and he was one of them. And I was like, bro, what are we doing? Like, you totally sold out, is like how I feel currently, but I could be talked out of that. Yeah, I do. I go through weird delusions of like, okay, if Joe Rogan invited me on his podcast, here's what I'm going to say to him. Like, this motherfucker doesn't know I exist. You know what I mean?
Are we sharing the same brain, dude? That is literally like half the battle. It's like, I love this dude. He seems like a solid dude, one of my favorite content creators, but I would give him an earful about making us get in the float tanks.
Half the episode would be like, we're talking about UFC. The other half would be like, what the fuck are you up to? Like, why are you pushing DMT? What is this?
What are you doing?
It brings me to this thing about one of your previous episodes on your show with your wife, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
She's a divisive lady. The people love her or they hate her. There's no in between. She's
She's a good content creator then.
She's an outspoken I don't want to say feminist because that's too loaded of a term, but she's an outspoken, strong Greek woman, and a lot of people, especially in the truth community, are not like trying to hear that shit. So we get a lot of feedback for sure. So anyway, go ahead. Sorry. Thanks for listening, by the way.
That's a winning success, absolutely. But yeah, you guys touched on Rogan and Ian Carroll, and so just like, if you could break that down for us, what do you think? Because I've got a lot of thoughts about that. People are saying he's a gatekeeper. I would agree, because it's like he's had Sam Tripoli on a number of times, and he's had him on recently, I think twice in the last year or so. But there's only so much that he'll allow him to explore without him pushing back. And that Ian Carroll episode was kind of like free reign on the J.
Tell me more
stuff. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know about that. It's like, you know about that shit, Joe. But you like, now is the time to introduce the rhetoric. And I'm just like, why now? What are you getting at? And very suspicious of you.
Joe's funny, right? Because I'm with you guys. Like I don't listen to every episode. I'll listen to certain ones. Like I'll listen to Sam Tripoli, of course, and the Ian Carroll one, and he's always like, I respect that he like kind of plays dumb so that he can get the guy to talk. Like I get that. Like you can't just have like Joe Rogan probably fill up 3 hours twice a week with his thoughts, I bet, because he knows a lot of stuff. But yeah, dude, the whole Ian Carroll thing, I don't know what, because Ian Carroll hit my radar right at the beginning of his rollout in May of 2023.
Oh, right before he became the biggest conspiracy content creator on the planet,
which is amazing. And look, I'm going to preface this in case he or his fan base is listening. The jury is out for me. I want to have a conversation with the man to get a better vibe, because he's very intelligent. He speaks well. He knows his shit. Like he's a very good researcher, which lends itself to like, maybe he just deserves to blow up out of nowhere, and the countless other truthers I've followed since 2009 don't deserve it.
I mean, he does do a good job of presenting it, right? And he is a likable character. And so I don't want to say that it's a total mystery to me. I recognize him as a quality content creator. He is, and he's compelling to listen to, he presents his information in a good way.
I've got a weird bias with him because I was able to talk with him. I'm friends with the redheaded libertarian, the girl Josie, and she does Twitter spaces that are usually really big. She had him on, and she's like, I don't really know anything about conspiracy. You want to hop on top? And I was like, sure. So I was there, and I was able to like insert this. At the time, we were big into the Genesis 6 narrative, the Nephilim, and stuff like that, and that leads into some weird spirituality stuff. And he was getting into there, like he was just touching it, but not understanding. And I'm like picking up from him as I'm talking with him. I'm like, he understands like a lot of the surface level stuff. So I just presented it to him, and he gave me like a pretty satisfactory. He was like, I've never heard of that. That's actually kind of fascinating, and I'm going to look into it. And then lo and behold, he's on Rogan, and he kind of gets into this alien shit with like, he's like, aliens might be demons. And I was like good on him for like, first off, not saying I don't know, but then I guess he did some more research and then kind of presented it briefly, and then he got away from it quick. But I was like, so I'm like, all right, I don't know. I still don't know where to put this guy. His explosion to success was unusual. I get his content is good, but it just doesn't happen that way. So I have no idea, but I think he's like a little open-minded.
I would say my concern with him isn't so much his rise to success as much as it is his role that he's playing in a narrative that I'm watching unfold. And it was very timely and very odd that he would have played the role. And so I'm sat back to ask the question, is Ian Carroll moving in a calculated way, or are we all moved in ways that we don't feel or understand by a spiritual agenda? You know, it just kind of seems that way sometimes, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, you'll have to listen to. I'm working on this massive, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5 episodes on the Dark Enlightenment, and it honestly, all the pieces of everything I've ever researched falls into it, and in the state of the affairs of the world today. Massive topic, but anyway, so everyone stay subscribed for that, okay? Because that one's gonna. I'm probably launching part 1 hopefully this weekend if I can find time to get it down and recorded.
Isn't it so daunting, Isaac? You want to like do this information justice. You want to present it the right way. You know, you got like a couple of shots at doing it the right way, and you better not flub.
We're sitting on a big one too, and it's just like, what the fuck do we do this? Like,
how do we present this?
And the shit part is the news cycle changes so fast.
Yeah,
that because to do it justice, you got to research a good amount, read a couple books, maybe get a podcast interview in, read some interviews, and then by the time you like get all your notes down and record it and publish it, it's like a week goes by, and all of a sudden some other insane thing happened, and no one cares anymore, and it's like, dude, like I don't want to. Anyway, the social media game is annoying because it ruined everything. Because now you're better suited to just splat out some BS that's 60 seconds and make it flashy, and you're way further off. And people are like, wow, this guy knows this stuff, and I'm like,
guess who recognizes that? Ian Carroll. He recognizes
Ian Carroll
that.
fucking mastered it. This is why I can't hate him, because I'm looking at him, I'm like, you do it good. This is a very low form of entertainment. And you know what? I'm just gonna say, a previous guest that we had on, fuck him. He's a huge following. They like whatever, like some what would you call them, like one of his producer chains or whatever. They're like, oh, put him on, he's great. He had really nothing to say. Like, this is a long form content, and then emailed us after asking us to edit the episode, and I was like, absolutely not, fuck you. This is an egg, David. I have a huge egg.
Whoa, where'd you get that egg, dude? That's a nice egg. I don't have any eggs.
Goose
to show
egg.
Off. You got any eggs, Isaac?
No, I was studying the eggs from the Jake Barber UFO update on the eggs.
Dude, you've been right there in Egg City with me. I've been going balls deep on like the Orphic egg and just explain, because it's just this. And I came out the other end and I was like, it's a symbol that's associated with David,
we're getting very distracted. This is why I did this.
Okay, please, but, Isaac, don't do that to me. Don't talk about eggs, even though I brought it up.
Let's talk about Ian, because I'm a big hater, right? There's a part of me that's a big hater, and I'm like, man, this is some bullshit. This guy shows up, and and here's where I've said my niceties and been like, hey, he's intelligent, he makes great content, and like maybe that's what happened.
Time to shit on him.
Time to shit on the man, because right early in his rollout, I saw his videos where he was going through the grocery store aisles, and he's like, okay, all these companies, it's one company owns it, and BlackRock and I forget who the other boogeyman is that he picks on, like BlackRock and Front Street own 90% of the stock or whatever. And his whole point was like, this is like a capitalism bullshit that, you know, it's just one big mega corporation that owns
The
all this stuff.
illusion
And
of
they're,
choice.
yeah, and it fits into all of these things that I've studied over the years with Edward Bernays and propaganda and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool, man. I like this, dude. And, you know, he was doing those videos, and I think his first video ever was like one about BlackRock or BlackRock. And I was like, I'm very, like, if you wanted to pull out my most rational conspiracies of the world, to me, the most rational one that anyone can kind of get on board with is the idea of mega corporations and the wealthy billionaires trying to sort of like suppress society as slaves. Okay.
Yes.
And I get that that was like a sort of left, what do you call it? Like a leftist classical liberal perspective, but that's kind of how I grew up. And in the 90s and 2000s was kind of being more on the left side of the spectrum. But I'm a moderate, right? I'm a moderate leftist. There's some conservative values I hold. I was active duty Air Force ammo troop. I support a lot of sort of conservative ideas. So I'm not like this insane purple hair communist leftist, right? Which I think is a total distraction and destroys the whole argument. And like, for instance, I like a lot of stuff that Bernie Sanders says. Free college for everyone. I don't know about that, dude, but like, whatever, man. Like, I at least appreciate the idea that like we need to bolster the middle class, unions, all that bull crap, whatever. So that appealed to me. The sort of Bernie bro in me was like, I like that this guy's pointing out all these awful mega corporations ruining our world and lying to us. And next thing I know, he's like I don't know how many followers he had at the time. It was a lot, right? And I think he said in an interview when he was on Tinfoil Hat, he was like, yeah, within 3 months, I was accumulating a couple 100,000 followers a month, you know, so he was up to 500,000 within a couple months, which is like off the charts insane.
By the way, Isaac, during that time, he's talking about this, like, you know, BlackRock, State Street, all the shit, umbrella companies that own everything. And you're right, that was hyper palatable for like, I don't want to say it's like a normie conspiracy theory, but it's a approachable, excuse me, a conspiracy theory by an average person. And you then did watch that narrative blow up on social media. And I saw it happen independent of him, but now knowing the timing and everything, because he wasn't in the videos that I was watching at the time. But given the timing of it, I would say, yeah, he was massively impactful in that narrative. Now, I don't know what came first. Is it the chicken or the egg? Did Ian Carroll bring that to the forefront of the, there you go, thank you very much,
I knew that was
to the general public's awareness, or was it an idea whose time was coming? Because sometimes I think when you you know, they have certain things in place, institutions that are geared towards us, and then we start to see them, and then they get ahead of the ball and they go, yeah, look, it is here, right? Because you kind of have to like show your hand when it becomes too obvious. And so you pick a person, right? What's his name? Albert Pike style, and
I
you
think
go, here's your hero.
the reason like we're a little sympathetic is because we're not like blowing up, but the reason we're sort of relevant at all is because of like the name Nephilim Death Squad. That happened right before Tucker Carlson started talking about the Nephilim, and then
Yes.
Roseanne said the same shit. Then there's Nephilim in Miami, and then
It's a cool last name, dude. You guys got a great name. I mean, I wish I would have thought of that for like merch sales and stuff. Like, damn, that's a killer name.
The merch is bananas, baby. TopLobster.com.
But that's another thing too, where like I do give these people some leeway because the success that we've had, I attribute it a lot to timing. We were just in the right place at the right time with the right idea or the right, you know, name, for example. And I didn't do that. And so it's like sometimes, you know, people talk about ideas being alive. Maybe they come from a spiritual realm. Sometimes I think our strings are being pulled in a way. So, you know, with Ian Carroll, I don't know if that applies to him or not. But yeah, I mean, around that time, I did watch the whole BlackRock State Street thing blow up. And I think that was Ian. I just don't know if it was him or if it was time.
What the things that I think are sus about the guy, and and I reached out to him like within 2 months of me seeing his first video, I would say. Maybe it was less, maybe it was more than that. Anyway, at some point in the first like sort of year of his blow up, I reached out to him. Now I believe on his TikTok, he had messages disabled. On his Instagram, it allowed me to message him. And I sent him a message and I've got, I don't know what I had at the time. Currently I've got, I don't know, 82,000 subs on Instagram. So it's not a small account. It's not verified though, because I'm not giving them my personal ID or nothing. And so at the time I probably had 70,000. And in his defense, maybe he didn't see it, right? Like I get a lot of messages that go to like a hidden folder, and I'm like, ah, damn it, like I didn't see this one at the time. And then he has a website that you can contact him, and I'm almost positive I did that as well. And I give them my sales pitch. I'm like, hey, my name is so and so. I've been doing this since 2011. I've got a podcast. I can get X number of listeners, to really try to appeal to people to be like, do you want to come share your message? And that was what I sent to him. And it was crickets. And I was like, that's really strange.
Yes. Yes,
it
is.
Really
Look, I know you don't want to say it, Isaac, because it's almost a way of tooting your own horn. But I do think in this, from my perspective, you've been established in this sort of conspiracy content creation community for a while. So if you are stepping your foot into the arena and you seek to make that flavor of content, building community is everything. And if you really do care about the information, you want it to get out to people. It's very strange, in my opinion, that he would have not picked up.
And I think, okay, this is because either he didn't get the message, which totally possible. That's totally a possible scenario. Or he had other plans. And then he shows up on Tinfoil Hat, which, God bless Sam and the fellas. Love them. And I was like, oh, wow, they got Ian Carroll. Right on. But Sam's got a much larger show than mine. And I thought, okay, well, I mean, maybe he's just like, dude, I'm only doing huge shows, which is, again, when you're brand new to this space, you take whatever interview with whoever, whenever they want.
Damn right.
It not my experience that he's had apparently a different experience than any other person I've ever talked to in this space, which is a lot of freaking people. Okay. Yeah. But I still say, okay, maybe he just didn't see it. That's fine. So he goes on Tinfoil and I'm like, okay, let me see who this guy is. And Sam asked him in the first couple minutes, they have a conversation about like, what's your background, dude? Like, you think maybe like people look at you as a psyop? And he was like, yeah, I would think that too. If I know this is a conspiracy community, and I would think, wow, this guy came out of nowhere. So like, he's smart enough to know that like a lot of us think that's weird how this guy shows up and he's all over the place immediately.
Right.
And then on top of that, my experience and most of the people I know in this space, you get canceled and community guidelined and torched over and over and over on social media and all this stuff. So like, that's kind of strange to me that he has been able to grow to an audience of 1 million. I mean, I got when I started my TikTok, I got like a few videos out, boom, it blows up. I'm up to 20,000 followers. I'm like, yes, here we go. Let's go. And then boom, strike. And it's just stalled and it's dead in the water. I did that twice. Okay.
We had to remove our entire catalog off of YouTube because we almost lost the entire account.
Yeah, same. I've been torched off of YouTube twice. Like the gatekeepers do not let you get that size of following. They just don't.
Yeah.
When
well,
let me
tell you this. Okay, I'm going to play, bad guy here. And even
also,
though I do.
Before you go, David, in that episode of Tinfoil Hat, NDS was name dropped for possibly being feds or ops, which was very cool. Yeah. In that exact conversation, when
it's the problem with this conspiracy world. Like we eat each other as quick as we possibly can.
Oh no, dog! If you tell me, are you a Fed? I'm going to tell people yes, because I just think 100%. It's a very good branding. Yes, buy a T-shirt. Thank you.
The reason, if you were to get very conspiratorial, which I don't know why we would do this on this show, but if you were to think that way, you would say, talking to a person like you, or let's say the other day, we made an appearance on the Occult Rejects. Within our community, there are people who know their shit to whatever degree, varying degrees certainly, but much more so than the average bear. You cannot hide for a 2-hour conversation. You simply can't. So if Ian Carroll makes the rounds over and over again on these more niche ones, Tinfoil Hat's great. Sam lets you present something, but that's not everybody's MO. You could easily hop on a show and have somebody stop you in your tracks and go, that's not true at all. That's not true at all, actually. Or even worse, and this is something that happens to me because my field of interest or knowledge is very wide, but very shallow. That's just who I am. I'm not a learned man. And so, if you are like me and you are trying to hide that, I don't hide that at all. You will be exposed for not knowing your shit, not having a depth of knowledge. And that could derail your entire thing if you're meant to be this, disseminator of truth.
I don't think he rolls in the conspiracy realm. he's like a conspiracy theorist, but like my friend, our co-host Clint Russell had him on his show, and he has a much smaller following than well, at the time he had a smaller following than you, but his show is political, so that's really easy to do. Like a
Yes.
political conversation is like we can have these opinions. I can form a right wing idea and kind of like stay over there. I know what to think, but yeah, in the conspiracy realm, like the show we did yesterday with the Cult Rejects, there was like fucking 9 people on this panel, and I was like, I better keep my lies to a minimum because they're gonna call me out.
Fed lies.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, so it's like
So-
it's a lot more, and you know they're brutal. They will fucking tell you like that's bullshit. I don't like this guy. And
Or
they're
even if
autistic
they
as well.
don't, the audience will pick up on it. And that's really what you don't want. It's one
Mm.
thing for a host of a show to say, like, hey, you don't know your shit. It's another thing for the audience, you know, thousands of people to hear. And that word spreads. And next thing you know, it falls apart. So I'm just saying, I can see that angle. It's like, only do the shows you know you're going to reach a big audience, you know you're going to help catapult you, and also you know they're not going to give you a shit ton of pushback. And that's one of the things, God bless him, that Sam does that I enjoy, actually, is he will let you present your shit and give you minimal pushback. It's got to be real egregious for Tripoli to go, I don't know if that's the case,
No.
but far and few in between. He lets people talk.
Yeah, for sure. And he even asked him, he asked him about his background, and wasn't a real thorough answer. Like, cause I'm like a big old hater, paranoid guy. Like, how does this guy get bigger than me so fast? You know, and I'm like looking for it. I'm like, well, that's weird. And then the couple of places I've seen him, even on Joe Rogan, I want to say on Joe Rogan, he said something about how he was a teacher. And I'm just like, I don't know, dude, because when you get into the point where you're like full-time making content and doing this kind of thing, you generally, to get on shows and do podcasts and stuff, you have to like have a podcast yourself, write a book, all this other stuff. And I look at him and I think, how does he make his money? I mean, it could just be literally TikTok money. I don't know what TikTok money pays, because I'm
I hear it's lucrative.
one of the many conspiracy people that gets snuffed before I can even fly. And I don't know. It just seems weird, because I'm trying to follow the money of like, what's this guy's angle? Like, what's the inspiration for doing all this? And like, why don't we hear, does he have a day job? What did he do before he started doing this? When did he quit the day job? Did he quit a day job? And then within a year of him showing up, he's hanging out with RFK Jr. And I'm like, what is this? And then he's at these Republican conventions giving speeches, and then he's on Joe Rogan, and I'm like, bro, this guy's such an op. Like, it's in my head, right? And that's why I reached out to him, and I even tagged him on. Someone tagged him on my Instagram post about this, and it was like, dude, do this guy's show. And I'm like, yes, please. Like, I will have a civil conversation. I just want to know, like, let's put all of these conspiracies to rest. Tell us, like what's your angle? What's your motivation? Why do you do this? And because I've never really heard those things, besides he was like, yeah, what did he say? He said he was like into new age stuff, and I don't know. I don't remember his story, but anyway,
I'll tell you what, Isaac, if we do get him, because he follows me on X, if we get him on here,
all right, okay.
Open invitation, because I have a feel that would be a fun episode. Have a little bit of everything. Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. And like there's a part. Look, and again, I'll compliment Sandwich Ian. I think the guy's super intelligent. He sat on Joe Rogan for almost 3 hours, and he crushed it. I
He's
couldn't do
very
that.
handsome, very tall, probably has a
Good-looking
big dick.
dude,
But we
tall,
want to know,
big old
Awesome
girthy dog.
mustache.
real girthy cock. We just want to know, why are you allowed to talk about? I think this is my question. Like, whether he is whatever he is, what he is like fine. But
Yeah.
you were talking about this narrative that is being moved into the ether, and it's like I was part of that as well. And I bring it up on the show a lot. The fans are probably gonna make fun of me, but like a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I made a joke about, it was a meme, said you could be anti. No, you could do it, or you can hate the Jays, and it's a picture of sleepy Joe Biden, and then next to it's a picture of Mel Gibson, and here's an egg for David to be distracted. And Elon Musk answers me. He goes, "Oh wow, Mel Gibson's real jack these days," and it just blows up. It's like fucking millions of views, and people are like going crazy. And at first, I'm like, "Is Elon Musk?" I said, "Is he retarded? Did he not see what I said?" No, he's not retarded. And I said, "Is he gay?" Possibly. He's just looking at Mel Gibson's physique, but no. A month later or 2 months later, you have the Kanye West thing come out. The first time when he goes on Infowars and he's wearing the mask, talking about Hitler and shit like that. And then you have after that is like this explosion of anti-Semitism on Twitter.
Mhm.
And now
Mhm.
all of a sudden I'm like partially the brown face of the white movement. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened here? Like I was number one making a joke, but I'm kind of also talking about this idea that's not allowed to be talked about. That's kind of like I'm massaging that into the ether. But Elon Musk boosted it. So I was like, oh, was it time for this idea? And it was just like
Yes.
a roll this ball along and I'm a useful idiot, which I think
Mhm.
happened. So now here we are after our second iteration of Kanye West being extremely, hating the and shit like that. Very funny, nice T-shirt as well. But we have Ian Carroll who just kind of tips this over the edge. In my opinion, I'm like, what he did on Rogan was push that narrative where it's not ever going away now. Now
They're
we're going to have to deal with it.
they're like cultural conversation creators. Like I've been watching the culture get engineered for a while. So on January 20th, we had whatever we had. I don't remember what it was, but it was just like the sentiment was reaching such a critical mass that I kind of jokingly said, it's time for Kanye West to reemerge. And I said that on the 20th of this past January. And then like 2 weeks later, he pops back up. And what does he do? He does exactly what I was kind of jokingly saying, which is these big influencers come along and they move the cultural conversation in whatever direction they like. And this one was suited for Kanye West. And then sure enough, the dude comes out, takes out ad space on the Super Bowl, sells a shirt. Like, I mean, it was a home run. And to me, it doesn't do anything but solidify. It's like, yeah, none of this is organic. And maybe it starts as organic, but it quickly becomes co-opted and they pick your heroes and they put them in place.
It's that topic of the well, I mean, you guys said the term. I don't talk about the whole like ZION thing. I don't want to get you guys torched. I don't know what you guys put this on, but I don't talk about that much on my show. And every red pill daddy I've ever had does. Bill Cooper. I've got the original Behold a Pale Horse with the whole protocols document inside.
Yeah, they removed the protocols from the from the the new version.
And if you read it, Bill Cooper says, "Look, I'm not saying it's all the J's. I'm saying that the Illuminati are J's." Basically, he says, "You're going to read this. It's a little unsavory. Just replace the J term with Illuminati, and that's kind of the gist of it." That's my paraphrase of what he says, and I agree with that. Like you'd be an utter fool to not see.
Yeah.
There's a lot of influences from this world into our world, and like it's just one of those topics that like I'm not touching with a 20-foot pole because I've been torched a million times on a million platforms.
Right.
And like I want to salvage, because like I said at the beginning, like my lane is pop culture, occult symbolism. I think it's fun, it lightens things up sometimes it's spooky, and I'm the satanic grifter fearmonger guy. I like to talk, ooh, spooky Satan, and like I like to keep it as light as I can at times, but like that particular topic is just so controversial, and for good reason. Like I would never want to push anything that makes people do anti things, but like I would never be the guy to be like, oh, there's nothing there, don't look at it, it's it's fake news. Like I would never say that either, but I'm like, I'm not the guy for that. There's plenty of guys for that. Go find them. Right. And
go find them.
Yeah, it's easy to find. And it goes back to my suspicion about Ian Carroll is, how does one talk about these things everywhere and still has 1 million plus followers on all platforms?
Yes.
It's absolutely insane.
It's the same answer, Isaac, as to why can you suddenly talk about the thing where you couldn't before, and now on X you can, because it's time. The gatekeepers have allowed this narrative to unfold.
It's not only that, like I've been expelled from the white community. Very unfortunate, as a 100% Puerto Rican man.
As a Puerto Rican,
they got real bummed out. I thought you were just tanned up or something.
It's summertime rolled around, and they're like, "You're very dark."
He's like, "You're getting a little too brown for us over here." Because I was like, maybe we should have some nuance with this thing. Like, not everybody is, part of this Illuminati, Kabbalah that you guys are talking about. Yeah. And they were like, "No, you're out, dude. You're done." Well, the second I tried to add some nuance to it, so I'm like, it's interesting because now we have that movement. That movement is going to go full bore, and once you have, I guess you'd call them the Borg, like the entire population of people, normie people, and you tell them one thing, they're going to go, and no one's going to think to have nuance or any kind of discrepancy on what we've been actually talking about this entire time. So I'm watching it, and I'm like, there's nothing I can do now. There's nothing anyone could do. we're moving forward with this narrative. It's going to be real interesting. But I wanted to say too, like those people that kind of got real mad at me, they're getting paid on Twitter to post this stuff. Specifically, like I post comedy, I post conspiracy, I do artwork. I'm like this. If you go to Top Lobster, it's a multifaceted thing. Pick your poison, whatever you like to see. These guys are just talking about Jays and they're getting paid. I know how much they get paid, like every 2 weeks. It's quite a bit. So I'm like, you got to ask yourself, why is this happening? Why am I getting a paycheck to continue to push a narrative? It's real strange.
I would argue that the reason is, and I've argued this on this show, is they created a pressure cooker effect when they said you can't talk about it. And that really stewed under that pressure cooker effect. And then eventually, if you want this thing to explode, well, you've got to have somebody come along and like crack it open. And Elon Musk was that guy. He comes along, he cracks it open. They pick their people to push a narrative. And I'm actually concerned now that the direction that this is going is got so much momentum that you can't stop. And very soon we're going to see a widespread public conversation that's no longer taking place on social media. It's now out in the real world, and it's not a conversation. It's just frustrated flailing, which is not good for anybody. But that's what happens when you suppress speech. And I think that was done by design.
Like I said earlier, I'm doing a mega deep dive into accelerationalism and the Dark Enlightenment, because that's what I think is the root of all of this narrative suddenly showing up everywhere. And as part of that, and the short version is, you go back to 2007. There's a philosopher named Curtis Yarvin who you probably recognize the name, right? He's been pushing. What's that?
Mencius Moldbug.
Yeah, that guy. He's been talking about this this sort of philosophy that he wants to instill, and it's literally everything that's happening right now. And part of that philosophy is it has a racial agenda to it. It's sort of eugenics associated. And if you read through a lot of the stuff he talks about, you're like, he'll come out and say like, oh no, I'm not racist, but I'm like, bro, you said like white people have higher IQs than black people because of their genes. Like that's pretty racist, man. Like, and this is the exact bullshit. It's like Elon Musk Sieg hailing on the stage twice in a row, and everyone's like, "That wasn't a Sieg hail.
He's just a happy autist. That's all. He's just a happy autist."
I don't know, call it whatever you want, but like I'm pulling my hair out. Like I can't believe this is like happening, and it's all by design. Like these people, and you were talking about the people on X making money off of it. I don't know what the money looks like when you push this stuff. I have no idea.
Like thousands of dollars. I've seen somebody post screenshots before.
Okay, it's paying rent, right?
2 or 3 grand every 2 weeks. I'd say $5 grand a month. That's not nothing.
No.
So that's upsetting, because like I listened to.
It's like I've been avoiding this topic like the plague, so I don't get deplatformed. Meanwhile, people are making
you guys are getting paid
tax bracket money.
Oh, they're getting paid good too. Damn, bro. So I was listening, as part of my research, I was listening to Steve Bannon's War Room podcast, and he had Laura Loomer on back in, I want to say it was December of 24. And I don't agree with those two often, but I like I said, like I'm moderate. Like I'll listen to everything. Like nothing offends me. And I was listening to them, and because they kind of flirt with these spaces of these philosophies, to put a fine point on it, like they're a little bit different. Like they don't agree with entirely everything that Curtis Yarvin and Elon Musk are saying or doing, but there's elements that they're like supportive of, which is to sort of accelerate the decline of the American empire.
Yeah.
And Laura Loomer even talked about, she said that exact thing that Top just said about how she's like, yeah, there's a lot of people that actually disagree with Elon Musk and all of this stuff happening, but they rely on their Twitter checks too much, so they're just going to keep pushing the same bullshit that they want, because Twitter is the new sort of state media, right? And what was upsetting to me about Joe Rogan is like I'm starting to wonder if he's not part of this now, which sucks. Like I don't want to believe that. I want to give him space to sort of, in my romantic relationships I have with him in my head, to say, hey, Isaac, no, baby, like I want that.
Not me. Other people,
I would never
not
do that,
me.
baby boy.
There was an interview he had.
David.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I was like talking over you.
Oh no, he had Michael Osterholm on at the beginning of the vid, and I remember my wife was pregnant with my son, and we were going to our final appointment to check out the baby, and I remember listening to that on the car ride there, and like immediately, I say maybe immediately, maybe 3 or 4 days after, the entire world shut down.
Yeah.
That's like right around the end of March. Actually, we're in March, and it was all from Joe Rogan's podcast. He put that into the ether. He also put in like the ivermectin stuff into the
Yeah.
ether, and then get the whole conversation from that. And here we go again with Ian Carroll. But
There's a very famous clip. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Joey Diaz, on way too much edibles, is talking to Rogan, and he said something about Rogan not answering. And he's like, "Yeah, dog, me and Redbeard were wondering if the CIA visited you again." And instead of just laughing about it, Rogan was like, "What do you mean?" And the look on Joey Diaz's face is very fascinating. You know, it's up to interpretation. And he goes, "Nothing, dog, never mind." And then he just moves on to the next thing. And to that I say, if you don't think that that's a potentiality for the CIA to be interested in the biggest platform on the planet, you're out of your mind. I'm not saying that that means he says yes. And also, I'm not even saying that if he is captured, that he has to be a willing participant. They have ways of making you say yes. You know what I mean? So people have this outlook on Rogan's podcast. I would almost say that it's guaranteed that he's co-opted, because you would never let an asset like that go untapped. If you're an intelligence agency, the CIA is in the business of cultural manufacturing, right? You're talking Laurel Canyon and all that shit. They never stopped. They do the same thing with the hip hop industry. It's never ended. And the idea that they wouldn't have an interest in Rogan's podcast, considering that it became the most culturally impactful phenomenon that we've seen since, I don't know, name something else that even holds a candle to it. I would say it seems obvious that they would do
hashtag
that.
free Joe Rogan. That's
Hashtag
where
free
I'm at.
Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan is an unwilling participant in this narrative. Look, there are things about him that are concerning, right? Because we talked about this whole John C. Lilly float tank thing. And obviously the CIA becomes fascinated in that conjunction of psychedelics and sensory deprivation and psychic communication and things like that. And much of that is part of this MKUltra program. And then he has, I don't know, well, he has Ian Carroll on, but before he does that, he blows up the telepathy tapes, which are very strange to me right now. It's another one of these things that I feel like an idea's time has come, and there's a narrative that's unfolding. And I think that it actually is a little bit more nefarious than people think. So they're looking at this telepathy tapes thing, which, by the way, Rogan made the #1 podcast in the world. Rogan was the #1 podcast in the world for a long time. And I'm sure occasionally somebody knocked him out. But generally speaking, he held that #1 spot until he introduced the world to the telepathy tapes, and they held the #1 spot for like the next few weeks after that. And they're still up there. And what I find fascinating about it is we're looking at, let's say, the MKUltra program. And what is that? That's based mind control. It's creating a dissociative identity disorder within the patient in order to make them susceptible to suggestion, but also to potentially expose latent psychic abilities. You know, we're getting into like the Montauk Project, right? Stranger Things is based off of it. It's a fictionalized, sensationalized version, but you have a little girl who is traumatized. And what does it do? It unlocks her latent psychic ability. I'm sorry, dude, but I'm looking at the telepathy tapes, and I'm looking at these poor kids that are nonverbal autistic, and I'm looking at the correlation between the autism levels and the you-know-whats. We can't even say it or else we'll get removed off of YouTube. And I'm going, is that just another trauma-based operation to unlock psychic latent abilities in children? And why is a guy who's introducing these sensory deprivation tanks to us also now introducing the telepathy tapes to us? And
Dude,
then
that's weird. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
no,
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to cap it all off with, and now he is side by side with Ian Carroll, steering the narrative once again.
It's interesting you bring that up, because like I said, I probably listen to maybe 5 Joe Rogans a year or something like that. I don't listen to a ton of podcasts.
I used to listen to like all
I
of
like
them, but
the
I
measurement
stopped.
of 5 Joe Rogans. Is
5 Joe Rogans.
So I'm at 5 Joe Rogans a year, and the last couple that I listened to, I swear maybe the last 3 I listened to, he's mentioned the telepathy tapes, and I was listening to the Jacques Vallée one
Yep.
recently, and he mentions it in the first 5-10 minutes or whatever. And I was like, dude, he keeps talking. I don't know what this is. So I'm driving while I'm listening to it, right? And I just Google real quick, like, are the telepathy tapes real? And of course, the Google AI, which I mean, sus, right? I don't know. I don't just believe it off the bat, but it says off the bat that it's pseudoscience and it's not real. And I just thought, okay, well, that's something I got to look into down the road. I don't know what this is or what it means, and I obviously know what like you were talking about with the explanation of what the podcast is. But I thought, well, that's weird. The joke he's mentioning, if it's supposedly pseudoscience, he talks like it's factual, the most mind blowing thing you've ever seen, and it got me interested in it. And I was like, well, I got to check these out sometime. He keeps mentioning it; it's got to be something. And dude, I don't know, like that's an interesting angle you bring up with the dissociative identity stuff, because yeah, I did a deep dive into Stranger Things when season 4, I think it was season 4, came out, and it's alarming, and it ties into a lot of the occult stuff when you go into the history of Tibet. And Alexandria David Neal, who went there, was studying a lot of the ideas that Helena Blavatsky was saying in a lot of her New Age writings in the late 1800s, early 1900s, or whatever. And she was saying that there are these things they call the CDs, right? The superpowers latent in man that can be unlocked through enough sort of like New Age practices of meditation and yoga and all this stuff. And forever ago, I read this book called The Autobiography of the Yogananda, a very famous book, because there was this Russian Orthodox guy I worked with, and we were always talking about like weird spirituality stuff. And he's like, dude, you got to read the Autobiography of the Yogananda. And I was like, all right, dude. And like this guy was like floating through walls and shit. I was like, whoa, man, this is crazy, And that's the kind of idea we're talking about, is unlocking these latent powers in man. And there's a variety of ways to do it. And one of them is like these New Age concepts. And then you've got your sort of based stuff that supposedly happened. I don't know how much of it's allegedly, but they I don't want to say the wrong words, but they torture and abuse young people. And what's crazy is, and I know I keep pitching this Dark Enlightenment series I'm doing, but like that's part of it too. I couldn't believe it, because I'm researching the Silicon Valley nerd fantasy. They have these libertarian nerd fantasies of like, oh, get rid of the government completely and gut it, and no taxes for anyone, and billionaires we should have a CEO king, which is all, by the way, tied into Manly P. Hall, Secret Destiny of America, the Platonic Empire's philosopher king. Like all of this is the same crap. Again, going back to my first point, it's the same thing over and over and over, and they just try different angles. And now the billionaires are like, well, let's do it, and this time we'll say it's like a libertarian thing. And they, when you dig into it, like some of the philosophers I'm researching, like Nick Land, who they call him the godfather of accelerationalism. Turns out, when I'm just innocently researching him, they talk about these artists, Jake and Dinos Chapman, who've collaborated with him a bunch. And I was like, why does that name sound familiar? Well, it's because back when we were talking about Balenciaga, their name came up because they had some really dark art, and people can kind of Google around and find it. And it's kids with appendages they shouldn't have.
They were the ones that were on a magazine that was in the background, I think
that was where their tie-in was.
Ads, yeah.
Something. There was some tie-in with them. And I was like, what is going on? And then I dug a little deeper, and the one dude, Jake Chapman, made this whole documentary about accelerationalism, and it had a bunch of philosophers discussing their attitudes on it. And it's fascinating stuff. Like I'm not sitting here like criticizing these people as idiots. I just think they're like demonic, possessed by demons, because the same forces that want to, like these libertarian forces that want to accelerate the end of the empire, also have the same common goal as these satanic these satanic groups. I can't say the terms on here. I heard you say you're putting it on YouTube. There's certain groups, if you follow BX.
Let's, say what you got to say, because we'll edit this down anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, we can send some stuff.
I'll refer people to check out BX on Twitter, on X.
Yeah, she's doing a deep dive constantly on these
yes,
in particular
Order of the
Order of
Nine
Nine
Angles is one of
Angles,
them,
yeah.
yes.
Mhm.
And because I did a couple shows on Nine Angles back in 21, but she takes it deeper into some of the other groups, and you'll find, and I'll cover all this on my show eventually, but you'll find that these groups are into a bunch of grotesquely satanic, awful things, including messing around with these, which
Yeah,
I'm
and
like,
no,
what is going on? Like, are these people like, are they trying to do based mind control on the masses, or I don't know. I don't know what
Well,
their
that's
angle is.
there's one more little
early.
key to that dissociative identity disorder situation, and it is that is also the catalyst for schizophrenia. So very many people who are schizophrenic have suffered trauma in childhood, and it creates a
Mm.
separation. It's a
Are we
methodology
all
for a kid
we
to
all about to
escape.
drink, David? Everyone's
We're
about to
all
drink?
about to drink. That's right, guys, because you know his name, Dr. Jerry Marzinski. He's a clinical psychologist in the field, 35 years dealing with schizophrenic patients. And he comes out the other end saying it is not auditory and visual hallucinations. These people are beset upon by something external to themselves. And it just so happens to have a visceral reaction to biblical scripture if you read it to them. And so we've done a couple of episodes with that guy. He lays that out pretty well. I've gotten to the point where I don't believe that schizophrenia is a brain chemical imbalance whatsoever. I think it's a spiritual disposition. And it's just worth noting that very many of the people who suffer from it have also suffered from in childhood, which creates disassociation.
And I know we're coming up on time here, Isaac, but I did want to mention that. So coming up in this like online space, I did come up in the libertarian circle. So like I know all these people that you're talking about, and I know the ideology inside and out. And one of our earliest episodes, we had our friend Dave Smith on with our other friend Clint Russell, and I didn't want Dave to come on and talk about Mises and Rothbard and Misesian economics, which I think there's a place for. I think that's what libertarianism, or not the party, but the ideology really nails. It's like the economic ideas of like how how things make sense. They get a little goofy going other places, but the name of the episode was God and Liberty,
Mm.
because I wanted to press Dave on where does God fall in this idea of libertarianism in your ideology, because libertarianism is this weird thing that can seem like it has a lot of these tenets of Christianity, but it also has these weird tenets of almost like Crowleyan Satanism, like shit like that, like do what thou
Mhm.
wilt. And I'm like, well, that's what it seems like. That's what Christianity is. If you take God from the center of Christianity, it turns into Satanism or libertarianism in a lot of different ways. Even their symbology, you have, the Statue of Liberty with the flame, which is kind of like it might
Right,
actually
like the
be,
morning star, the
yeah,
Promethean torchbearer, like it's their symbol. It's a strange, yeah, it's a strange thing to choose. And then even the concept of like liberation, right? Like is that's so parallel to rebellion that they're almost kind of the same thing. And then it just brings to image, the fallen angels. I don't know. I think there's something
yeah.
there.
By the end of that episode, we didn't receive any satisfactory answers. I don't think Dave would be interested even coming back on, because it was kind of like we were talking past each other. He's talking politically, and I'm talking more like,
Mhm.
"What the fuck are you guys doing?
Yeah.
Where are you leading young men spiritually? How does this help?" And I'm not sure we got anywhere, but it's been one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot. That idea of
Interesting.
accelerationism, yeah, and
Yeah,
we
so
put
you
it
know what
aside.
I'm talking about when I'm using these terms. It's all kind of new to me because I wasn't really aware of it, and you're correct in the sense. Not that I need to tell you that, but like in the terms of libertarianism, is the Church of Satan embraced social Darwinism, and it's like might is right, and that's kind of a libertarian perspective, and I'm not reducing all libertarian and conservative ideas as wrong by any means. I mean, I think that having a balanced, moderate system is kind of the ideal, right? And you need some capitalism. You can't have like full blown socialism or communism or libertarianism. You kind of have to have a mix. And I guess that's like kind of the conversation that everyone needs to have is like, where do we fit on that spectrum, you know?
Hmm.
Well, if you go to one, I brought David to a Libertarian Party convention that we were performing at. I was doing comedy there, and that's all you need to see to understand what the logical conclusion is to that ideology. You're not going to get like people like Clint Russell and Dave Smith and me that are going to be like that. I guess like we come out of it, but we are not the exemplification of what it is when it's boiled down to its logical conclusion. boiled down is a bunch of autistic kids or autistic men and women with a bunch of pins on their jackets who are very much what you're talking about, where they can't be spoken to. There's like black and white. There is no nuance in their arguments, and it could get pretty dangerous if God forbid that was on like the world stage. It would be a disaster for mankind, man.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree totally with that. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, we just hit that 90-minute mark, and this is a
there's a 9
fascinating
again.
conversation, man. You know, Isaac, this thing you keep saying how it draws back to your research and it's all connected. It's very much the same thing that we're experiencing. I bet you if we had more time, we would find that the overlap is actually probably mostly overlap. In fact, it's probably the same thing that we're pulling on and you're pulling on. And I think we're coming at it from slightly different angles. So I'm interested to see how these ideas of yours flesh out over time. We'll be watching, but I want to thank you in the meantime for your, having shown up and having this conversation with us. And one more time before we get out of here, Isaac, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on. This was a total blast, and we definitely need to do some more collabs in the future here. The one last thing, Joe Rogan is not 5'2". I have a photo. I'm 5'8". I stood right next to him when he came to Salt Lake one time years and years and years ago, and he's my height almost exactly. So
is he really?
I will testify he is definitely not 5'2". He's 5'7" or 5'8". I can't tell.
I think I think you're right, because I'm 5'7" and I hugged Sam Tripoli and I paid attention in the picture to where my shoulder came in comparison to Tripoli. Joe Rogan's shoulder comes to the same place. So
okay, all right.
I agree with you. He's like 5'7", 5'8".
We all gotta hang out because we're all like short
kings
over here.
Hell
Thank
yeah,
God,
dude.
Yeah.
Good.
If
All right,
you
yeah,
were-
because I go hang out with Sam and I take a photo. I'm like, God, man, or worse yet is Mark, dude. That dude's like 7 foot tall. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm never
well, don't
standing
take a
next to
picture
him.
with Ian Carroll because he's 6'8". So when you do eventually have
really?
him on your show, he's 6'8".
Yeah.
That's why he's crushing. We're speculating as to whether or not he's captured. He's 6'8", beautiful
he's
head of hair,
crushing, dude.
awesome mustache, great jawline. We just suck. That's
Man,
that's
terrible.
it.
You ain't lying, dude. Well, I better hit the CrossFit gym a little more if I'm going to talk shit about Ian Carroll. I know he's a massive dude.
I'm thinking about
anyway.
getting leg extension surgery. But go on.
Okay. Anyway, so yeah, you could find my podcast, Occult Symbolism and Pop Culture, everywhere. You can go to allmylinks.com/IsaacW. It's 2 A's in Isaac, right? So allmylinks.com/IsaacW, and you got links to all of my stuff. I've got 2 I run. If people don't like my sort of presentation of my solo podcast, I do one with my wife, and it's a back and forth conversational. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes we talk relationship and couples, sometimes we talk about conspiracies. It's all over the map. But people, like I said, they love it or they hate it. So it depends on what flavor you like your podcast to look. But I've got a couple of them. I've got 9 books, Amazon, Audible. I narrated most of them, and I'm writing the Twin Peaks book right now. So, and then final pitch. If you go to IlluminatiWatcher.com, up top on the menu, you'll see free book. And you can click on it and you sign up for my free email newsletter, and I will send you my first book that I mentioned many times that has Joe Rogan's mention in there. I will email that to you for free. I own the email list. I will never sell it. I don't do no weird stuff with it. I literally just tell you my new shows, appearances, performances, that kind of thing. So thanks again, guys. You guys are the best, dude. This was great. I loved it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Awesome,
brother. I really
dude.
appreciate it.
Yes. All right, guys. Until next time, don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. See you later.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, you got them. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening.